Hi, I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat with industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions that you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. In today's episode, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Phil Krok, the sales manager for Anker SOLIX. Hello, Phil. How are you?
Well, Rosh, yourself, thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, mate. It's a pleasure to be joined by you this morning. So much to discuss, Phil. So much has happened over the last couple of weeks. It's super exciting for our industry and certainly super exciting for anyone out there, consumers, people, manufacturers, industry alike. I feel like we're that much closer now to achieving net zero.
Yep.
But Phil, before we get stuck into all the developments that have happened, including the TV show, which is the major reason I've got you on today, anyone listening, this Saturday, 4 p.m. on 9 Live, you will see Anker SOLIX and their technology on this incredible coastal home. It's amazing, which we'll chat more about in a little while as well. But Phil, before we get into that, my audience loves to know a little bit more about the person behind the brand. So can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, what your career to date, and what led you to Anker SOLIX?
Yeah, no worries. So it's sort of been a bit of a roundabout journey. I studied political sciences at university in America, but have always had a real strong passion for cars and mechanical things. So I still have a car addiction, sadly. I build hot rods as a hobby. And when I moved back from the States, Tesla was starting their sort of role here. And I was quite interested in more of the energy side of it because I saw that as a real opportunity for consumers to take control and to take some of that power back. Quite a sort of libertarian way of thinking. An opportunity came up. I was in the right place at the right time to join the team between the rollout of Powerwall 1 and 2. So I started at Tesla, was there for a few years, actually got made redundant from Tesla via an Elon tweet. So that's one of my rare claim to fame. And joined Solgen to help roll out their large-scale solar. Went from there to BP and worked there for the last few years through COVID, helping their HEMS device roll out. So that was a small box that was essentially enabling you to maximize the returns from your solar, battery, EV, pool pump, air conditioning. It was an integrated home system.
Wow.
That was a really interesting product. And unfortunately, they decided to leave the Australian market with that product and focus solely on the UK and sort of funnel that back in. I helped Amber for the last couple of years building their channel partnerships with all solar installers across Australia. So I've been so deep in the world of VPP. So I've got quite a cross experience in terms of it's all been battery focused, but it's been selling the battery, or how do we get the most out of the battery, or how does an energy retailer maximize batteries for consumers. So a lot of experience it's led me to here, and it's been really good journey.
Which is absolutely incredible because you really have seen it from every single angle. And now I know why you said don't mention Elon. So I'm glad you brought it up. But the reality is the technology coming to the Australian market is absolutely phenomenal, and none more so than the tech that you're working with right now with Anker. I mean, I must say, when I saw the technology for the first time at one of the exhibitions, I mean, the first thing that hits me is just really how slimline it is aesthetically. I'm a designer by trade, so I just look at aesthetics first, and then you want to understand the technology in more detail. And it looks amazing, and it is amazing. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about really, before we get too stuck into the tech itself, what differentiates Anker SOLIX from the various other manufacturers of battery storage out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it was one of the main reasons I actually wanted to join the company was the way they went about building the product. Being a consumer electronics manufacturer, they make the phone chargers and all sorts of other sort of consumer hardware, 3D printers, things like that. But if you look at some of their phone products, like what I've got here, very slimline, very compact, has a stand, has a screen that can give you sort of status updates as to what your, there we go, you can see it now, as to how your phone is charging. They've taken a lot of the same approaches to how a consumer would purchase a good just in a shop like a JB Hi-Fi, and they've applied that to the residential battery product, the X1. And that's not something that's really been seen before. I mean, Tesla definitely led the way with an attractive looking product with Powerwall 2. But everyone else has been an engineer talking to an engineer and expecting the weight of the sales to be on the solar installer. You know, they've already got a hard enough job trying to convince people to buy batteries up until the rebate. Why are we making it harder on them by making these somewhat bland white boxes that have not been designed with Australian homes in mind? And you take a look at what Anker has done, and people shop with their eyes. They walk into a store, and as you noted already, you see a wall of different batteries, and the Anker SOLIX X1 stands out significantly with its ability to have the screen on top, the slimline design, slightly different color. It just really highlights a lot of the things I see as the industry moving towards a more mass adoption of batteries. And as people move beyond just the tech specs, it's the same as what's going to happen that's happened in the car market. The more people buy cars, but there's more differentiation between them all.
No, completely. And it really is the same. I mean, if you go back to the day, the original solar panels, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, solar panels have always had been, function over form, and they've done their job. But they look, there's various types of homes. They look horrible and a bit of an eyesore. So really, the evolution of panels to become like all black, aesthetic, slimline, really had them appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah,
and to those really bigger, sort of more energy, heavy consumption homes. The same thing applies, obviously, as you just highlighted with with battery storage and inverters. I mean, they do their job and they do what they're supposed to do, but fundamentally, a lot of the time they are on display. And there's a lot of people, I mean, especially in the house that we're showcasing this Saturday, who know the homeowners really well. And Luana, who's the wife of Jared, she was like, look, how nasty is this thing going to look? Because I really have got this beautiful home. We spent a lot of money renovating it. I really did not want an eyesore. And when she heard that we're going to put it in the garage, I think her first thoughts were, well, I'm still going to sit there when I walk in. So I was there when the installation happened, and I captured her facial expression as she walked through the door. And she was really, really happy. There was a big smile. She goes, it's not ugly. And that's all she could say. Then she even went up and gave it a little bit of a hug. So I think you've certainly hit the mark in terms of the way it's designed. But another thing you just highlighted, which is so important, as you mentioned, is really having as much information visually available to the consumer straight away. Because don't get me wrong, I love apps. A lot of people are getting used to using applications to understand more information and to deep dive into various different products around their home. But really, to be able to walk up to that system straight away and visually see, where it's at in terms of charging, how much solar is actually being produced so far, how full the battery actually is, just gives you the snapshot that you're looking for. And also that peace of mind knowing that it's actually working, which is what fundamentally a lot of people kind of, just need that reassurance, right, straight away. And you've kind of ticked off this other design.
Yeah, look, I mean, I look at the design, and as you mentioned, that's minor sort of prod that you've spent all this money, but it's actually functioning. You walk past a lot of the brands for sale at the moment, and I'm not going to kick any of my fellow competitors, but the white box sits there. You have no idea what it's doing. It could be on, off. It could be asleep. Who knows? I think of it as how my dad would have loved this product over what we had at the time, because he never had a smartphone. He was a baby boomer that never really interacted with tech. Mum's a little bit better, but not wonderfully tech savvy. But he drove his car into the garage after work every day, and this product would have been incredibly satisfying for him to drive in. And it has a motion detector in the screen. You can set that to on or off. And he could have just waved his hand in front of it or walked past it and been given that positive feedback loop of it's made this amount of energy, the battery's this full, you're good to go. And, that for a lot of customers is just that feel-good factor of, oh, sweet, okay, cool. I didn't need to go to my phone and seek out the information. It's been kindly and pleasantly presented to me in an environment that I didn't have that information before. But in your garage is a perfect example. Side of a house, probably a little bit less likely you're going to walk past it every day. But in a garage, where you're going to see this thing, you're going to be interacting with it in some fashion, to have that screen, to have that feedback that you're all good, and maybe you get home in a blackout and the garage door goes up because you've got it on the blackout circuit, and the lights on the actual battery change color depending on if you're in on-grid mode or off-grid mode. So you immediately drive into the garage unknown that there might be a blackout in a suburb, and you're getting that feedback loop because the bar is green telling you that it's blackout. So you then are able to go, okay, sweet, and make the actual decisions you need to make sure you're good to go.
And that's absolutely right. I mean, really, in this scenario, and anyone listening or watching, fear not, we're going to put a clip on in a second so you can actually just get a very high-level look at what you can experience this Saturday. It's going to be amazing, 4 p.m. on 9 Live. But really, the fact that the actual the unit's actually installed in the garage, you as soon as you drive home, Jared's walking past the unit. As you said, you can tell straight away if there is a blackout. And the reality is that the good thing about this technology is it's seamless. So as soon as there's a blackout, it transitions from grid mode to off-grid mode. Whatever's connected to that circuit is essentially powered. And so really, it'd be hard for you to determine if you're within the home at the time that anything's actually happened. I had a blackout. Well, we got installed our battery technology probably about 5-6 weeks ago, and we had a series of power surges the week before. And the only way, or the only sort of indication I had that would just transition from grid to off grid and onto battery storage was I was streaming Netflix and it just stopped. And then I had to press the channel again. I was like, what the hell? Why did that happen? And then I realized straight that way that we're operating on off-grid mode, right? So I think when you do come home and you walk past the battery and you see that, you're like, great, don't put on the aircon, or, we've got X amount of battery storage. Let's make smarter choices about how we use this and how we navigate this, especially if it's not really after dark, and therefore you can't constantly use that sun to sort of charge your home and power your home at the same time. Phil, what we're going to do very quickly for anyone watching, check out this week's episode of Energy Matters, 4 p.m. on 9 Live, featuring Anker SOLIX.
Yeah, solar and batteries as a combination together are becoming very popular. As the price of batteries have come down, the lifespan has increased, and feed-in tariff prices have reduced whilst retail electricity prices have increased. The timing for batteries is now. It's going to be almost commonplace for every system to have a battery.
So there you go, Phil. So that was absolutely awesome. It was an amazing day of filming. We were worried about the weather because it was absolutely terrible the morning of, and we expected there to be a lot of rain, but it cleared up. It was perfect for filming. We had a bit of sun coming out. The product does look amazing. Did the team enjoy filming Energy Matters?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time. And the product itself it's a pleasure to install. It's a nice piece of kit to work with. So.
No. Well, I know that Lee from Resync, they did the installation of the system, and he is such a fan of your products.
Big fan.
From his perspective, I mean, obviously they spent a lot of time with the electrical, making sure it was beautifully installed, aesthetically pleasing. Obviously, they installed the solar panels as well, and their mission was to have none of the panels be visible by the homeowners. So they really did a good job with that, and aesthetically it looked incredible. But as I said to you, the actual assembly of the battery system and the fact that it's got a modular design is absolutely perfect. Phil, they went with 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage along with 18 kilowatts of solar panels. Can you tell us a little bit more about, the options available for anyone wanting to buy or install this particular unit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the X1 comes somewhat in three flavors, we'll call it. So you've got your AC coupled unit, which effectively acts as somewhat of a backstop between your home and the grid. So if you've already got a solar system, you've had it for a few years, it's operating fine. The AC coupled unit steps in between your home and the grid, and it captures all the excess power that you don't use in the home from your solar system. So you can get one of those units pretty quickly. They're very easy to install, and you can have between 5 and 30 kilowatt hours of storage on an AC coupled system. Then we've got the hybrid units, which are becoming a lot more common and popular, particularly with newer installs, because it's an all-in-one system. So what you're looking at there is your single or your three-phase hybrid systems in varying sizes. And then if you want to go bigger beyond that 30 kilowatts per stack, you can parallel a system. So you can essentially plug another one into another one and have them run, and get up to some pretty significant storage sizes. So, we've got a lot of options for customers to be able to pick and choose how they want their system to run.
Which is amazing. So 30 kilowatt hours is a lot of battery storage for a start. I mean, I have got 38.4 admittedly, but then you can add another stack, which takes it up to 60. How many stacks can you go to? Is there a maximum?
There is, yeah. So you can go with the three-phase system. You can parallel up to 6 individual power modules, which is where the brains are, where the screen is, and that takes you up to a maximum of 180 kilowatt hours. So if anyone out there wants to do that, I'm more than happy to come to the party and bring you some thank you gifts, because that would be a crazy install. But it does give customers that do have larger loads or are concerned that they're in potentially zones that are more applicable to blackouts, storms, things like this, that if you wanted to have that little bit more wiggle room, which I think with the coming EV wave is going to be a lot more relevant. The days of the 10 kilowatt hour battery plug and play walk away are probably done, and I think we're going to start seeing your 15s, 20s and 30s a lot more common now.
No, I 100% agree. And you've touched on two really, really important things there. I mean, first and foremost, with blackout protection, I mean, it's unfortunately blackouts are now becoming a common occurrence. I mean, I live in the Gold Coast, so we got hit by the cyclone a few weeks ago, and we lost power for 9 days. This was pre-battery installation, which has obviously prompted me to get battery storage ASAP. But for 9 days, I mean, 1 or 2 days, you can get past it with a few candles, and you've still got your barbecue as a backup for food. But then after 3 or 4 days, everything in your fridge freezer is destroyed. And obviously being coupled with a cyclone and floods, you really do feel a little bit vulnerable. So having battery storage, beyond any other reason, beyond reducing your electricity bill, is just all about being able to maintain a consistent lifestyle and a consistent day-to-day, allowing you to work, allowing you to eat, turning your lights on, heating and cooling your home. It's something we take for granted, but it's so important. And then second to that is just really, as you said, the emergence of electric vehicles. So really, people, petrol is ridiculously expensive. And with everything that's going on with various other countries around the world and the various politics that come with that, there's going to be impacts, right? And petrol always seems to be one of those ones, and fuel that sort of really cops it. So, do you see it's do you think we've really now got to the point as a nation where everyone needs to consider, not just having solar power, but really having the energy independence through battery storage?
I think it really lines up perfectly with sort of the Australian psyche of looking after yourself. We are quite an independent people. We like to sort of do it ourselves, or find a way to muddle through in a lot of situations. It's quite a cultural thing here, and you can see that in the take up of rooftop solar. Over 4 million rooftops have solar systems now, which is an incredible success and something as a nation we should be immensely proud of. We are leading the globe in per capita solar, that we should be shouting that from the rooftops as success. But we shouldn't then rest on our laurels and on that lead. We should be then looking to what the next step is. And the next step really is that battery and grabbing that solar when we're not using it and keeping it for later on. Why am I going to give it back to the grid now for pennies on the dollar? Have my energy retailer then sell it to my neighbor for a decent profit, potentially paying a solar tax on that export, other than looking at it as a similar system to, a rainwater tank. When it's sunny, I'm just storing that sunshine for later on. And this federal rebate that I'm sure we'll discuss shortly is going to, I think, really unlock a lot of potential for homeowners to take that power back. They did the solar installation, their bills went down 30, 40, 50%, but they're really sort of maxed out there. They can't do much more beyond that. They've got their pool on the middle of the day. They've got their electric hot water on the middle of the day. But mum and dad are out, the kids are at school. What are you going to do? You want to keep that power for later on, and battery's really the best way to do that. And look, as EVs become more common, particularly plug-in hybrids, I see like a big market for those in Australia with the distances we cover and the type of plug-in hybrids that are coming out, like some of the utes that are now available. You're not going to want to have a small sort of 5 to 10 kilowatt hour battery to then try and fill 30, 40, 50 to up to 100 kilowatt hours of storage in your car. So, having that smaller battery system at home now just seems less sensible. It helps. It does. Every little bit helps. But when you pull into your driveway in your BYD Shark or your Tesla Model 3 and you go to plug it in, you're filling a bucket with a thimble. Let's have a look at this and go, okay, well, if I'm getting my battery system now and the feds are going to kick in some coin to help get that cost down, let's go big from day one and build in some redundancy.
No, absolutely. And you've obviously led me nicely to our next conversation point, which is the federal government. So look, we're not political energy matters. We're neutral. We support anyone that supports a clean, green Australia. And there's obviously various forms of energy out there. But I think for us, on this particular election, and we were happy with the outcome, as and more so because consumers finally have access to independence. And as you mentioned before, Aussies, I'm an adopted Aussie. I mean, I've been here for 25 years now, so just over half my life. So for me, I know that energy independence is probably the most important thing to me. And ultimately, what Labor have done inside of this battery rebate program that comes into play from July the 1st, but accessible now, as we'll talk about in a second, just really allows everybody access to their own battery storage, which means they can actually finally get some independence. And as you've highlighted, there's an opportunity to think outside of the box and think, well, do I just want to get myself a 5 kilowatt hour battery storage system, or do I actually now want to go for the most I can possibly afford and take advantage of this rebate? Can you give us some indication, Phil, because details are still coming through about how this program is going to work?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm still waiting to hear, like most of my learned colleagues are. But from what we know at the moment, it's going to operate most likely in a similar fashion to the STCs, the small scale technology credits that are created when you install solar. So it's a point of sale discount for the customer based on the size of the system. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's $370 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, that's about right.
It could be give or take $5 here or there. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But that essentially means that, the rule of thumb for the industry has always been that a battery is around about $1,000 a kilowatt hour installed to the customer. That was always kind of the very, very rough estimate. If you look at that rule of thumb and you apply the federal government rebate, you're taking close to a 40% lump off the cost to the customer. So if you were looking at 10 kilowatt hours before, go for 20, because it's a one-shot deal. You only get it that time that you install the battery up front. If you get 10 kilowatt hours that first install and then decide in a year's time, actually, I probably should have got more, guess what? That second lump's not going to be as cheap as the first one. So I think it's a real opportunity for every homeowner, from the richest to the poorest that are looking at batteries to go as big as they can justify at this point in time. I know that's rich coming from a battery manufacturer, but I think from an Australian homes perspective, just having that bit of extra redundancy gives you so much extra peace of mind. And it also enables lots of other little things that may come up in the future. So participating in potential VPP opportunities, as I said, the charging electric cars, potential grid instability, potential for participating in other things like demand response, or I don't even know what some of those things might be in the future. But if you've got wiggle room, you can then participate. You don't want to be left there going, oh, I wish I'd gone bigger.
No, completely. And you're right, because I mean, what's great about the technology today, excuse me, is that there's, including the Franklin's, the Anker SOLIX system, it's a modular design. So the fact is, you can add another 5 kilowatt, sort of a module anytime you like and just build it up. But really, I think when evaluating what your requirement is, it's not just looking about what your bill looks like right now and thinking, well, I've got X amount of solar on my roof. I'll just, the gap is probably, I'm shipping back, back into the grid via my feeding tariff, half of that production. I'm just going to get a battery storage system just to take the balance and what I actually need. It is considering, how's your home going to look in 5 years' time? How's it going to look in 10 years' time? Am I still going to be in this home? Do I like it enough? And if you do, and you love your property, like for us, this is our forever home, you're going to think, well, over the next 20 years, these are my requirements, and there's going to be more technology. Electrification is rife. I'm going to have loads more toys and gadgets, home automation. I'm going to be controlling my lights and my blinds and everything from the palm of my hands. So how much power am I going to need to do all of those things? And it really is that opportunity to say, if you've got a 30 to 40% discount off the purchase price of battery storage, and batteries have come down significantly for anyone watching. I mean, it isn't what it was 2 years ago. It is ridiculously cheaper. Panels aren't going to get any cheaper. I don't think if they went any cheaper, every manufacturer is going to go broke. So, so really, it is that time to say, am I happy with the size system of my roof? Potentially no. We'll get an upgrade. Add more panels. Have a bigger solar system on there. Get something like Anker SOLIX. Either a hybrid solution, so you can connect that directly to those panels, and then just max it out. And I think one of the great things I like, Phil, about the industry as it is right now, is there are some incredible installers out there that are willing to take the time to really explain to consumers, what the right solution is for them. I think probably one of the frightening parts about the whole thing, and you and I have both seen this over the years that we worked in the industry, is when there's a really amazing rebate that comes out, especially this one being point of sale. You have organizations like yourself who manufacture incredible technology, just great. We can actually support the installers to educate them properly on how to do the install and how to support the consumer. And likewise, the retailers and stores do the same thing. But then you have this other category that always seems to enter the market when there's a rebate, that really, I suppose they're there primarily to create a product that can actually, be low cost and present to the consumer. Oh, you know what? We can give you your battery almost for free, and vice versa. There's a certain type of retailer and installer that really pushes that product. How can a consumer, a homeowner, or a business owner kind of prepare themselves for that and be able to differentiate between those two types of products and those two types of installers approaching them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I'm a massive consumer advocate. I'm very passionate about making sure that people have got enough to get by. And the potential for people out there to take advantage of, federal money is always a scary thing, because it seems to them somewhat like easy money. And easy money is always a scary thing when you're thinking about people's homes. So if I'm a consumer, I'm coming to solar or batteries or both for the first time, or I'm returning to get a battery after 3 or 4 or 5 years of having my fine functional solar system, I'd be keeping a few things in mind. And look, in honesty, that it's not like the dark days when solar first started getting rolled out in, I think, about 2009 and 10, when the first rebates were there. We were building all the framework that we now operate in those days. That was a very sort of Wild West, westward expansion, whatever cowboy metaphor you want to use. Yeah. It was very much a time when we were learning through the mistakes that we were making as an industry. The industry now exists, and it is an enormous employer in Australia. I think it's well north of 30,000 people work in solar installations and the solar economy in Australia. And yet we still have this fear that we're going to get ripped off as consumers. But there are enough safeguards in place that it is a lot more difficult for someone to come in, throw a few installs in, make some government cash, and then jump out and leave the consumer holding the bag. But if it is something you're afraid of, there are multiple review websites that do allow customers to sniff out the ones that might not be of quality. There are products that are built to a price and will absolutely work how they say on the label, but they are cheaper. And you've got to anticipate that if it is significantly cheaper than what the competition is, there is a reason for it. I'm not going to be getting mine installed by a company that's been around for a year or two. I'm going to be getting one that's been doing it for at least 5 years. A lot of guys have been in local areas or are sponsoring footy clubs or have been a local member of the community for 10 years plus now. They're the ones I'm going to, and I'm going to get a quote from them, and I'm going to get a quote from their two of their competitors, and I'm going to compare them and sit down and go, okay, well, A, B, and C have said this product, this product, this product. They all equal these different prices. Why? This is really about that do your own research. But I definitely think that it's not going to be as scary for customers and for us, well-behaved members of the industry as it was that 15 years ago or so, when there was some very dodgy stuff going on, getting slapped on roofs and people getting ripped off blindly.
Yeah, look, it really was quite dark back in those days. And as you said, what's reassuring today is there's a real process and a real dance any manufacturer has to go through to have their products, allowed to be sold in the Australian market. So although it can be quite frustrating at times, how much administration's involved and dotting I's, crossing T's, I mean, I think from a manufacturer's perspective, I think from the end user's perspective, for consumer, it just means that any tech getting sold into this country has gone through that process and is, it basically been ticked off to be used. Do your research as well, though, because fundamentally, more than likely there'll be some consumer electronics coming into play that maybe haven't gone through the same process. So I think it's really important for people just to understand, understand the manufacturer. Jump on our website, ngmatters.com.au, and look at all the different brands. We're obviously very detailed in terms of information that we write, but also jump onto the actual manufacturer's own website and check it out. And just Google. And as you said, there's plenty of, other sort of competitor websites out there that basically just talk about, the latest technology, do reviews, and just, identify for yourself, what's good and what's not. Phil, you've been an absolute pleasure on today's call, mate. I do appreciate it. I'm so excited to see Anker this week, Saturday, 4 p.m. on 9 Live. It's going to be an amazing segment. It's a beautiful home. And I think as the audience, anyone watching, you'll be able to see for yourselves why you should get battery storage, how it can help you in something as random, which is going to become less random over time as a cyclone, and provide you yourself and your family that peace of mind and protection throughout that sort of period. But I think really, aside that, or next to that, really understanding how technology now looks in terms of form and function, aesthetically stunning, very, very beautiful inside of having something on your home, but really, what it can deliver to you in terms of ticking all those other boxes, the energy independence, and really planning for the future. And as Phil mentioned, now's the time, because now there's some money coming on. Phil, one final question, and we're still working through this process in terms of, evaluating how this program is going to be rolled out. But effectively, the program is due to kick off on the 1st of July at this stage. We're encouraging and we're recommending, along with a lot of our other peers, that people do go ahead and get it installed as soon as you can, because the fact is it is going to get really, really busy. 2 questions for you. Firstly, Is your advice at this stage, based on the information that you know, that people do go ahead and get it installed, and then the installer is just going to, understand for themselves when to activate the system? So more so from the 1st of July. And secondly, how are you preparing for this? I mean, have you called the guys at head office and manufacturing facility and say, get those robots cranking, we need more technology? How are you going to be going for stock?
Yeah, look, two very good questions. The way that the rebate is structured, essentially as of now, you can have the system installed and not turned on. And once July 1 hits, turn it on, and the installer will be able to apply for that rebate on your behalf, and it'll come off the total of your bill. So if you can, and you've got the wiggle room and the system that suits, jump on, get it installed now, and just have it sit there. July 1 is really 7 weeks away or so.
Yeah, like a month.
It's around the corner. It'll be the middle of winter, dark days of Sydney. So we'll want to make sure that you got something to look forward to for the new financial year. But as of July 1, I think installers are going to be absolutely flat out, just knocking out batteries, one after the other, because the demand to have, people want what they want. They want them turned on the day they've got them. So the demand that will be seen from consumers will be immense. And in response to that, we do have ships on the ocean now sending additional stock to our distributors to make sure that we are ready to go for that potential wave that's going to hit. We think that it's going to be, from a manufacturer's perspective, almost a bit of a race on who can get stock here, because if a customer wants a battery that day and a competitor doesn't have their stuff in stock and you do, it could be quite an easy way to sneak in there and to make sure that your product is in instead of someone else's. So we're making sure that Aussie customers are going to be well looked after, and that there's going to be plenty of parts and service available for those people that do want to get an Anker SOLIX X1. But our install friends are also going to be well looked after, and they're going to have plenty of stock on hand to be able to meet that demand. And we're also working with those installers to help shore up that flow for them, to make sure that they've got enough business to keep them busy as well.
No, fantastic, mate. Well, look, that's very reassuring to know. And it's going to be exciting times. So I can't wait for our next podcast. We'll be talking about volumes. Okay, so how many systems did you install this month? Record amounts, which is going to be an incredible conversation to have. Phil, thank you so much for your time, mate. I do appreciate it. You've been absolutely awesome.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Take care, mate. All the best. So, guys, you heard it here first. Really, the program has been released. It's coming out from July the 1st, but don't delay. Get your battery storage installed as soon as you possibly can do. As Phil mentioned, it's going to get really, really busy. And you've got to understand, when it comes to battery storage, the margins aren't that high for the installer. So, whereas you're thinking, they must make an absolute fortune from installing these things, they don't, especially those who are passing on, the discount to you. So really, from your perspective, you have to understand, an installer's going to try and fill up their book as much as possible to be able to deliver this to the end user, and at the same token, be able to operate their business. So with that in mind, you just got to use a little bit of common sense and, start going online. If you haven't got solar power, or you've got solar power ready and you want to add battery storage, jump onto our website at energymatters.com.au/free solar quotes. Submit a request for what you're looking for, be it a battery on its own, an upgrade with panels plus battery, or really, whatever you're looking for, and we'll connect you to your local installers. If you're looking specifically for Anker SOLIX, which I would recommend, and you probably will want to once you see this week's episode of Energy Matters, Saturday, 4 p.m. on 9 Live, then there's a page on our website that you can go to that has all the information, the videos from the TV show where we feature the property, as well as direct links to Anker's website, so you can do more research. And there's a form on there as well for you to specifically request a quote using Anker SOLIX's products and the X1. All right, so definitely recommend you do your research, and certainly recommend you at least get out there now to identify how much this is going to cost you, and you can start doing the dollars and cents conversation to work out what's affordable, different payment plans are available to you, and really get yourself set up as quickly as possible. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be amazing. It's incredible that this incentive is finally, or this rebate has finally arrived. We've been asking for a federal rebate for the last 2 years, and the fact we've now got one is absolutely amazing news. A final comment. Saturday, 4 p.m, 9 Live, Energy Matters. Tune in, watch it if you miss it. It's also now available to be streamed on 9 Now. All the best. Thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you next time. Until next time, all the best.